1963. Wow. So he's an Aggie, okay? During his tenure at Texas State, in addition to teaching he mostly taught introductory botany and zoology, but he also did some other things on the side, like teaching teachers. He's been a member of the Comal County Master Gardener Association for about 20 years. Guys, 20 years he's been there. But he retired from active membership in 2021. He has presented the entomology section of the Comal Master Gardener trainees for a number of years. He also talks to garden clubs, master naturalists, NIPSOT chapters, and tonight he's speaking to us. So please welcome Dr. Don Tuck. Do it again.
All right, we'll see how this thing goes, and I'm sure you can hear me, provided I don't fall over. Anyway, garden insects, they're mostly good and a few bad. I've done this one a number of times, keep changing the title, and of course you notice I don't have the logo from AgriLife Extension. I erased it off of one. I never put it back. I tried to do that and I said, oh, I just won't do it this time. All right, let's take a look and see what we've got. The good guys, most of the insects in this world are all right. They have many, many beneficial aspects of in our existence, and there's only about 5% that are going to cause us real problems, particularly in the gardens. And we want to look at 4 groups of insects that we find. And the first one is going to be the recyclers. All right, something to recycle, that takes care of dead plant material, even animal material, and they chew it up, lay eggs on it, larvae feed on it, and it goes back to the soil and is used for nutrients for a number of organisms. The best beetles are a fairly common one. You find it in the stumps of dead, rotting trees, and you notice the one on the right-hand side, a bunch of larvae. Well, this is a female, and unusual for many beetles take care of, look after some of the young. The insect is about 1 inch long, sometimes a little bit longer, but it's a good recycler. Other ones, the Hercules beetle. That's the spotted June beetle, pretty good size. The one on the left is the grub, the larval stage of these June beetles. You can recognize June beetle larval stages because they're C-shaped, they have a big fat body, and many times you'll find the back end of the abdomen will have a dark spot in it. That's most of the digested food particles from eating, and they don't get rid of that until they become a pupa. This is the thing you find in the compost pile. The great big grubs in the compost pile, they're doing the job of reducing all the plant material down to usable material. The little ones that are maybe 1/2 inch long that you find in your grass, those are the dirty guys. Those you take care of because they're going to eat the roots of some of your plants. The next one, dung beetles. Well, I just read a paper from the Entomological Society that they're really concerned about many ranchers, farmers. They give all kinds of wormicides and growth inhibitors for insects that feed like ticks and fleas and mites and that as systemic pesticides. In the dung of those animals, when you have dung beetles feeding on that, they roll it up, they lay an egg in it, and the larvae to feed. But in this dung now is going to be toxicants, and they'll kill the larvae. Many years ago, when we moved out into pasture land in Hays County, we used to see dung rollers around, but then we had a couple dogs, and you feed the dogs, anti-tick and flea medicine. And I said, you know, I wonder where all the dung beetles go, because I haven't seen one in over 40 years now. And I think what's happening is feeding these animals the pesticides, it poisons the food, and the dung beetles are good guys as larvae because they will take the feces from the domestic animals and recycle it. They break it down into usable nutrients in the soil. Something to think about. You don't want your cows gobbled up with ticks and flies and mites and so forth, but you need to get some thought of when you spray or apply and how you do it. Pollinators, those are fun. Now, here's 4 kinds of bees. The upper left is a carpenter bee, very common, good sized animal, almost 3/4 of an inch to an inch long. It will have yellow setior hairs on the thorax, but not on the abdomen. Carpenter bees will have a black, shiny, really shiny abdomen. And they live in fence posts. So if you have old fence posts, old cedar posts around, other fence posts, and you find holes in it, leave them alone. Leave them there, because that's the homes for carpenter bees. Of course, I remember years ago in California, my dad built a little outside thing with a redwood bench on it, and wondered where all these bees are coming from, and there, underneath that they had holes that were eating the inside out of that. So they eat the wood, but they are good pollinators. And at the Lindheimer Gardens in New Braunfels, they really love the plants that we've grown, some of the salvias, and you see them all over there. Wonderful bee. The upper right is the classic honeybee, and it's a good pollinator, but not the best. They don't work as early in the morning as native bees do. The populations can be so dense because of hives. You have 35,000 bees in a hive, and they become competitors with native bees. We've got an awful lot of native bees around, and they're good pollinators for many plants. The honeybees are somewhat restrictive, and you see that sac, that red or orange color on the hind leg. That's a pollen sac. That's where they stuff it. Now, the one in the lower left, that is a leafcutter bee. A native, they're solitary bees. They live in the ground, and if you've ever noticed some of your roses or crepe myrtles will have nice little circles cut out of the margins of the leaf. Well, those are done by carpenter bees. They take that, put them together, glue them together, make chambers in it, and they go underground, and they will have individual chambers for each individual egg. You get larvae coming out. Then the one on the lower right is sweat bee, halictid sweat bee, the green one, and there are several genera of sweat bees. Good pollinators, and they're all, those are ground dwellers too. Now beetles, a lot of beetles are pollinators. Bees, the upper left is one that you should leave alone if you find them in your garden, because they're, one second, old people have a troubled times remembering things. And it's, the Meloid is a blister beetle. Leave it alone because it has a vesiculating oil in the body, in the joints, and if you handle it, there's a good chance that the oil will cause blisters. In fact, there's one species that they used to grind up and use it as an aphrodisiac, people, but then they found out that it raises havoc with kidneys, and you can die. It's also pathogenic for horses. A friend of mine, one of the graduate students at Texas State, he phoned from Florida one day and said, "Hey, Don, what do you know about blister beetles?" I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, do they bother horses?" I said, "Oh, they can if you get a lot of them." Well, this group of horse racers, they had a breeding farm, had a bunch of horses there, and they bought a lot of hay from Oklahoma. They didn't realize that in the hay were pockets of a striped blister beetle, and they lost $3 million worth of racehorses. So it takes a number of them to do it, but in the diagnostic lab at A&M, they've got a number of kinds of parasites, some worms, some grubs, some other things up there, even a jar of blister beetles to let people know what they are. And they don't necessarily kill one, but it takes a handful. But leave them alone. They can bother you. The one on the upper right is a June beetle. It's a good pollinator. Now remember, a lot of these things, they're going to eat some of the pollen. They're going to eat other things on there. But in the process, they're wandering around, moving from one flower to another, and they're pollinating. The lower left is a Pennsylvania. Okay, I'm trying to think of the thing. A soldier beetle, and it's an excellent pollinator. It's also a good predatory beetle. The one in the lower middle, those are tumbling flower beetles. You go up there and say, "Oh, look at the little beetles," and you point at the flower, you go to touch them, whoop, they're gone, they fall off. Well, they're tumbling flower beetles, more devils. The one on the lower right, is a wood boring beetle called a flat-headed wood borer, and there are hundreds of species. Now, Mike Quinn has a site called texasento.net, I think. .net, I can't remember exactly what the extension is, but he's got pictures of all the beetles. He's got pictures of butterflies and moths. He's got pictures of all kinds of bugs. There's some groups of insects that aren't there, but he is a tremendous entomologist, a good taxonomist. So the one on the lower right, I remember driving back one time on from a field trip. We got into an area, all these little beetles flying. There were thousands of these things that were on the roadside flowers on the Gaillardia. Neat little beetle. Bobby's like flathead wood borer. By the way, they are wood borers. In that group, they're massive wood borers. Flies, a lot of, yes ma'am.
I had a beetle that pops.
Oh, the one that flips upside down, yeah, that's a click beetle.
A what?
A click beetle.
Click beetles.
If you turn them upside down, they'll bounce in the air because they've got an extension on their head that fits into a groove on the first thoracic segment. And they lock it in there and go, pop, and flip upside down.
And they click.
Yeah, they click.
I've got a lot of them in my house.
In your house. Well, that's unusual, but they're plant feeders. Some of them can be very destructive. In fact, the onion root wireworm is a click beetle. A little bit devastating for them. Flies are good pollinators, and here's several. The one in the upper left. That wonderful thing. Have you ever sat in the backyard with a glass of tea, and you're there, and all of a sudden you see this thing come up, go up to your knee or something like that? That's a flower fly, a hoverfly. Good pollen. They don't bite, they don't do anything other than pollinate. They're really a neat group. This last year I bought a book on the darn things, just what I needed, like a hole in my head. But at least they've got pictures of a lot of the hoverflies or flower flies. Good pollinators. The larvae are fantastic because they gobble up aphids and whiteflies. So you don't want to kill these. The one on the upper right now is it's a blowfly. They're attracted to carrion. And carrion is rotting and smells bad and stinks. Something's dead. This fly goes up and flies over to it and says, "Oh, something for my babies to feed on," not realizing it's a plant. And one of the plants they have from Africa over in Nacogdoches. They've got it in the Arboretum, and it's pollinated by one of the blowflies. They generally find dead bodies of deer and skunks and the armadillos that jump too soon to feed on.
Boy, was my wife surprised when mine finally opened up and she took a whiff. Yeah. Get that thing off my porch.
They're wonderful in gardens, aren't they? They do the plowing for you. All right, the lower left is also a bee fly. I mean a hoverfly. And the one in the lower right looks a little fuzzy like a bee. Well, they're called bee flies, and they're good pollinators. Unfortunately, a number of species are parasites of native bees. In Washington, there's a problem, and they have the alkali bee, which is a prime pollinator over there. They'll have an acre of land, and it's nothing but litter with thousands of holes in the ground where the native bees, the alfalfa bee lives. Then these flies will go along and they'll fly by one of the bees' nest holes, and they'll bomb an egg at it. So when the bee goes back, it'll pick up that egg, or the egg will hatch into a larva, and as the bee enters the hole, the larva attaches to the leg of the bee, and then when the bee goes to its a home in the ground to deposit its own egg in that, or to add more pollen to it, this fly larva will go ahead, and when it's sealed up, it will eat the bee's larva and the pollen and emerge as its own. In fact, the bees are not, the flies are not that smart. A fellow at Washington State, he was doing a dissertation on the alkali bees, and he'd stand there in the booths of Washington. He said he had these darn flies flying by his boots, and choom, they're bombing the grommets in the boot to lay an egg, thinking it's a bee hole. So I guess they don't know. Moths and butterflies. Well, they're good pollinators too. The swallowtail in the upper left, they pollinate. Now they also drink the nectar. That's what they're up to the plant for. They do a little pollinating, good guys. But remember, they all produce eggs and larvae that eat the plants you're trying to grow. Just think if you want to grow some fennel. What happens? Where's all my plant? They eat it up. Tomato hornworm, same thing. One of the little gray butterflies, it is a nice, pretty plant. Pretty butterfly. It's very small, and the larvae are called cotton square borers. So the butterflies and moths, they produce larvae that eat plants. So what you do, if you have a certain plant you like, but the caterpillars keep eating it away, just buy more plants. You'd want them anyway. And so we have various butterflies. The middle one is a skipper. The one in the upper right is a moth, is another skipper, and the one in the lower right is a sphinx moth, and they are nighttime pollinators, where you may find the hummingbird moth during the daytime. It's one of the few sphinx moths that will pollinate during the daylight hours, and it is a small one and a very neat moth. All right.
Pretty.
Yeah.
Very pretty.
Oh, yeah. Oh, your tomato hornworm. Well, tobacco hornworm is the common one we have around here. The larvae on that get to be about 3 inches long, and you may have a plant one night. Oh, I love that plant. Next morning you go out and you find half the leaves gone. where to go. You start looking around. You find a hornworm, and you find another one. No, I did that to a datura one time. One day it's a beautiful plant. The next morning, half was gone. I said, where in the world's up? And I'm looking all over. Finally, I find one, and I end up with 11 sphinx moth larvae that were feeding on the plant. So they can denude the plant very quickly. All right, let's take a look at some of the parasites. Now, the term parasitoid refers to an organism that feeds on another organism of the same group. So parasitoids are going to feed on, at least the insect parasitoids will feed on another insect. That's what we're going to look at. But they're parasitic. And parasites will feed on an organism at its host's expense. They will eventually lead to the death of the host organism. That's how the parasites work. Think of tapeworms. That's what they do. Let's think of fleas. That's what they do. So a lot of nematodes. That's what they do. Eventually injure the host and the host dies. The whole secret of parasites is to make a generation before that host dies so they can reproduce itself. So parasitoids are in the same group. So now we're going to look at the insects that you find in gardens that will feed on other insects. The aphid-lidded wasp, well, it says the hosts are white flies, scales, and aphids. Well, that's something to eat them. You don't have to poison them. You can just wait for the aphid-lidded round. But notice on the left photograph, there's a small little bee-like thing. They are feeding on the eggs of aphids. The dark aphid in the right one is a mummified form. It's been parasitized, and a parasite, the little wasp larva, is going to eat the inside out of that aphid. Another group of wasps.
Yeah, cool.
The order Hymenoptera contains the ants, bees, and wasps, and many of the Hymenoptera of a group of insects. It's a huge group of insects, and they are, as a group, very beneficial because they have many parasites and predatory species in that group. The Bruconid wasp, certain group of wasps, notice here the two upper photographs represent oviposition on caterpillars. They are major parasites of caterpillars. Like the caterpillar in the lower diagram is what you call a looper or an inchworm, a geometrid moth larva, that they don't have any prolegs in the middle, so they can kind of snake along. They hold in the back, stretch out the front, bring up the back, stretch like that. Almost like a leech. A leech has a posterior sucker and it has an oral sucker. And so it grabs on the oral, stretches out its body, holds with the oral sucker, then brings the rear end up. So leeches move in that fashion. Well, notice the white projections on the larva. If you find a caterpillar that has those white structures on the body, don't kill it, leave it, because those are the pupal cases of a wasp that has already eaten out the insides of the caterpillar. So it's a way to keep the parasitoids, the wasp parasite, in your yard, so when you have more caterpillars, you have something that they will feed on. Trichogrammatids. Notice that. These are eggs of caterpillars. And notice the little wasp that is, the rear end is touching that egg. Well, they're depositing an egg, its own egg, inside the egg of the caterpillar. And their larva, the egg will hatch, the larva will feed on all the contents of the caterpillar in that eggshell. Cool. Another group of, these names you never need to remember. Just say, some damn wasp. And then there you go. And they're all different kinds of them. Notice this one, typhoid wasp. It feeds on white grubs. Those are the insects that eat up your lawn, the white grubs.
How do they get to them, Don? How do those wasps find them? Because usually those grubs are underground.
Yeah, well, they can dig down and they can find them. There'll be
Really?
scents that these insects can find. The grub will eventually, it can eat and move around underground.
Yeah.
Well, the wasp will go ahead and find it because of the sense of the, and there'll be some vibrations too.
Yeah, maybe.
Now this one, this is a group. It's a really large group. There are thousands of species of ichneumon wasps. Feed on caterpillars and beetle larvae. The one on the upper left, that is a male. If you look at, ever see one of these that has a laterally compressed, what do we say, flattened abdomen on it, that's characteristic of ichneumon wasps. And the females then will have an ovipositor that sticks out the back like the one on the upper right. And how do they find beetle larvae? Well, many of them are parasites of wood-boring beetles. Years ago, we were at a picnic one time, and we held dead tree stump there, a good size one, and it had been rotten. There's an ichneumon that was trying to get its ovipositor down into a hole where the beetle was to lay an egg on the either buprestid or a round-headed borer inside the wood already. Because there'll be odors that all these different species will produce, the pheromones. And so this one, the ovipositor, if this is the abdomen, ovipositor will come up and loop down like that, and it has an end where it can move its way, dig through the rotting wood in order to lay an egg. And it's the ovipositor, the egg-laying device, is in 3 parts. And it forms a channel. And the egg that the wasp produces is stretched out long and skinny to get down this long skinny tube. And a lot of these parasites, they will produce what's termed as polyembryony. They will lay an egg, and that egg will divide, and you may end up with 50 or 60 individual parasitic larvae inside the animal. Hymenoptera, the wasp larvae, is pretty neat.
That is.
Cool.
Glad they don't do people.
No, they don't do people. They don't even sting people. Most of the wasps, the bees, they don't sting you. They're interested in doing what they do. If you bother them, they're going to sting. Well, if someone keeps bothering you, you're going to smack them. So I mean, the same type of thing. All right, tachynid flies. Well, there's a neat group of flies. So they are parasites. The whole members of the entire group of trachinids are parasitic as larvae. And notice the one on the left is really bristly hairs on its abdomen. That's one way to recognize a tachynid. The other one on the right, I think they're neat because it looks like it has shafts because it's got these heavy-duty bristles, or called comb-like hairs, the ctenidia, on the hind legs. But they're parasites. And someone had a pecan tree, a tree, and they brought a polyphemus moth pupal case. That's about the size of a big pecan or a walnut. And one of them, it was, when it was open, it was just had a bit of the calfskin of the pupa of the polyphemus moth. So the moth emerged from the pupal case as an adult, ate the way out the front, and then flew off. She gave me another one that, on that one, you look inside of it, you don't find, inside the pupal case, you don't find any calfskin of the moth pupa, but you may find a bunch of individual cells, almost look like a wasp nest. Well, they weren't a wasp, they were fly pupae all stuck together. So there must have been 20 or so individual flies that ate out that caterpillar, and then no moth came out, but a whole bunch of flies, Tachinid flies, came out. They're really interesting flies. Predators. Let's look at some of the predators. Now everyone thinks earwigs are dirty, rotten, nasty things. Well, they are. These guys, the striped and spine-tailed earwigs, a small group of species that are predatory. So they are beneficial. They eat other insects, and they eat eggs of it. They're all predatory, which is good. Praying mantids. We know about praying mantids. Now, that's praying mantid behavior is something else, especially when they mate, because the female will bite the head off the male, and I guess that's just losing your head over it. We'll leave that one alone. But praying mantids are highly predatory. They've got stout jaws, and they're excellent feeding on a bunch of different insects. The egg case on the right is called an ootheca because it has many individual eggs in it. And as the eggs hatch, the first instar nymph of the mantid comes out, and they wait, but they move off pretty quickly because if you linger at the site, someone's going to eat you, or you may eat the next person out. Hey, when you're ready to start life, you need a hamburger. What? There's my brother. I'm just going to gobble him up. That's all. The ambush bugs. These are sucking bugs. Now, we're used to stink bugs or things, but ambush bugs you don't see very often because they're few and far between. But they will mimic the colors of many of the plants that are their host plant because they know what comes to it. So they'll just sit and wait around, and when something lands on that flower, they'll grab it, stick the proboscis in, and that's about it. So there were some gruesome looking little bugs, but they have piercing, sucking mouth parts. Big-eyed bugs. Well, my goodness, that thing has got big eyes, all right. And notice it's feeding on another bug. It's the Cormelliana that it's feeding on, a black bug, and it's feeding on a green bug. Couldn't even tell what that thing is on there, but you see the little proboscis sticking out. Well, it's caught one and it's feeding on it. Minute pirate bugs are common in the garden, and nice color to it, but look, it's feeding on some scale insects on the upper left. On the right, it's feeding on a caterpillar, early instar larva of caterpillar.
God, he's pretty.
All right, kissing bugs. Now, I'm bringing this in here because a lot of people may be concerned. Wizzy Brown, the extension entomologist of Travis County, had a program over a week ago on Chagas disease and kissing bugs. And it's something you people need to really just watch out for. A lot of things look like this, but this is so distinct in its form and its color that you should be able to recognize it. I have a couple of specimens I did bring, but it's a crowd that would be awkward to pass them out. If you want to see what one looks like, fine. This one, you can tell the kissing bug by the shape of the body and the stripe on the side of it. This orange stripe is fairly broad, and that's characteristic of a species called a Triatoma sanguisuga. And there's another one that's very common in Texas. It's called Triatoma gersteckeri. That's the one I brought. The little orange bands on the body are narrower than on this one. And the two I brought, one is the female. You can see the banding on the side of the body and shape of it. And the other one I pinned on the side so you can see the small little proboscis that sticks out. That's what they stick in the animal. Now, the reason this thing is critical is just the state health department's trying to get it on the permanent a list of important insects that are endemic to Texas. There are about 20 states that have this type of insect. We have three principal bloodsuckers there. They feed on blood of mammals, this group. The whole group of kissing bugs, like the one in the upper right, is predatory. It feeds on other things, but it doesn't transmit a disease. The big one in the bottom, that is a disease transmitter called Chagas disease. And that one is very common in South America. There's about 280,000 people or more in the United States that have Chagas disease. There's overall, worldwide, there's anywhere up to 8 million people with it. When you, we call it a kissing bug because a person's sleeping in a hammock. This is very common in southern Mexico, Central and South America, particularly in Brazil. And they've got insects down there that when the bug feeds on the blood, it's a kissing bug because your head's sticking out under the blankets and you've got a thatched roof. And these insects are found in the thatched roof. They come out of there at night when you're sleeping, get on you, and stick a proboscis in you and suck blood. When you wake up, oh, no, smack it, rub your face like that. The insect does not transmit the parasite while it's feeding. It defecates, and the infective parasite is in the feces, and the person will rub it in not knowing it. Dogs, characteristically, can have Chagas disease. It's a problem in Texas. Dogs with Chagas disease. They can have respiratory problems, they feel lousy, they don't eat much, they look a little bit scruffy, and all of a sudden one day they'll up and die. Because these things are very common in dogs and cats and wood rats, Neotoma, and armadillos, possum, skunks, and there's even some that are found in bats. Species will get there. And when a dog is bitten by one of these bugs, what does it do? They grab it, gobble it up. So the parasite from the squashed bug enters the delicate membranes in the mouth, gets into the circulatory system, then invades cells in the mouth, in the body, reproduce, make many little ones, rupture from the cell, and if you're a child, you may feel lousy for it. It's a little sickness. Many doctors couldn't recognize this if it was labeled. That's because it's not considered endemic, but it is now an endemic disease. It is in the United States, and that's all. So the advice is you never want to pick one of these up, because if you stomp it, and I'll get rid of that sucker, and you grab that thing and you squashed it, and you happen to have a cut in your finger, you picked it up, and you get any gut contents on that open lesion, you've infected yourself with the parasite. In people, this has an acute phase. Some people are asymptomatic. This goes on for a little bit, and all of a sudden you have problems. You're tired, you feel lousy, you're listless, and lo and behold, you just don't feel so good. Well, the parasite eventually will end up attacking muscles of the esophagus, muscles of the intestinal tract, and in later cases, the chronic condition will attack heart muscles. So you may have sudden cardiac death from the parasite. In Brazil, they call it mal de engasgo, because what you do, you can't swallow anything because your esophagus has lost all of its muscle tone. It's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches in diameter. And so what they do, they drink a lot of water when they eat to flush the food into the stomach. You have trouble going potty because your large intestine is about 4 inches in diameter, all the way down. So it's not a good thing to have. Yeah.
Can you test for this?
Yeah, there are tests where it's a blood test, and in some cases it can be an antibody test too. And there's no vaccines, nothing for it, but today the chance of getting the vaccine is snowball chance. But anyway, it can be tested for. The best, I spent maybe too much time on this, but the whole point is, it's something that you need to recognize so you don't pick them up. And all these I've bound myself, but I figured maybe I didn't have any holes in my hand, so just take it and stick a pin in it.
Sir?
Yeah.
How do you spell that disease?
CHAGAS. And some of the first symptoms in kids anyway is swelling around the eye. That's called Ramona sign, and the lesion or the irritation you have around the feeding site is called a shigoma. Yeah.
From the first infection or the first contact, what is the time frame for the disease?
What is what?
What is the time frame for the disease from the first contact?
Oh, it's within a week or so. You can tell if a person is just too, you have very much symptoms like flu. But the thing to do is to see if you've had any of these around. A number of these specimens that I've got from my daughter. She has another house on where we live, and she has cats in the house, but she finds me, Dad, is this one of those kissing bugs? I said, oh, yes, ma'am. He said, just leave them alone. And we find them outside because she's got possums living under the house. She's got a sweet baby raccoon under the house. And she just has all these animals around. And but you've got to just be cautious.
No treatment for this?
Yeah, there are drugs that are effective during the acute phase when you have the disease and the appearance of it. It's administered through the CDC or available there. And it is virtually useful when you have the chronic condition and you have it. Just say, hope you have a good life. Because the drugs you take, they treat the symptoms and not the condition, because there's nothing that really has found to work against it. In the chronic stage, that's the one where you've had it for years. And so behavior of populations is also strange, that in southern Mexico and some states and in South America, some groups will go ahead and a mother in the family will inoculate the kids with this thing. So GABA bug, squish, rub it in a lesion on the skin or something, not realizing they're infecting their child. But anyway, they exist. So the kissing bugs, these are bloodsuckers. Now, here's a good guy. This is also one of the Regevias, predatory. Look at, in the bottom picture, that curved proboscis. The wheel bug is a dandy. It feeds on a lot of garden pests. And you see one feeding on a June beetle on the upper right, feeding on another insect on the left. So it is a good insect to have around. Don't kill these. But they will bite. They don't transmit anything to you. But if you bother them, they'll say, hi, yeah, no. They'll give you a little. Now, in all you remember from any entomology you've had in your training, that there are sucking insects. Well, these are just more of them. Here we have the assassin bugs, other assassin bugs. This is a good guy. This is Zealous. And these things, if you find a few of them on your tree, great. Leave them there because they're going to feed on caterpillars and other things on the tree. These are not uncommon to be found on mountain laurel. They're feeding on the Genistomoth larvae. Spine soldier beetle. All right, this is in the group of stink bugs. You know those things, when you squish them, they smell bad? All right, but this may smell bad, but it's a good predatory spined soldier bug. It is a true bug. Notice the nymph in the upper right. it looks considerably different than the adult in the lower left, in the middle. But they're feeding on insect. And notice it has spines in the shoulders. That's one of the characteristics of that one. The two-spotted stink bug, another stink bug. Notice the two spots on the pronotum, the front segment of the thorax, and that's the two-spotted stink bug, and it is feeding on a leaf beetle larva. Good predator. The predatory plant bug. Plant bugs as a general group are plant feeders. They'll go ahead and spot up your fruits on the plants. This one, though, is predatory and will feed on other insects. Mites and some scales, other bugs and aphids. And if you notice, the left one has the wings bent down over the back of the body. That is characteristic of all the plant bugs, whether they're good guys or bad guys. Plant bugs typically have that bent down portion of it. Damsel bugs, another sucking insect, and notice it likes feeding on caterpillars, and the bottom one is going ahead and feed on a plant bug. So it's another beneficial insect to have around. Thrips, most of the thrips are going to bother your plant. A lot of times in roses, you find a rose there, the blossom doesn't open up. You wonder why it's all clumped. Many times it's a thrip that does it, but not this one. This is of a small group of thrips that are predatory. They eat scale insects, they eat aphids, they eat other things. So they're well predatory. Lacewings, we all like lacewings. Those are neat. At night they come to your lights on the porch. They flutter around. So nice and delicate. And they lay eggs on stalks. That's how you recognize a group of lacewing eggs. I've seen them on the underside of a shelf in the garage, a wooden shelf. I've seen them on plants. Sometimes they're on top. But they're on stalks. This is nature's way that when the egg hatches, the first instar larva comes down. I'm hungry. They wait for the next one, or they move on. So they will feed on one another. They're cannibalistic from that standpoint. And they're out then going to look for an aphid to feed on, or a whitefly to feed on, or something. And the larvae of lacewings have sickle-shaped mouth parts. They grab those things, they have a groove inside, and they suck the animal dry. All right, ground beetles. Well, we got a lot of beetles to look at. One thing is, in ground beetles, characteristically, well, the bodies are somewhat striped. The underside has some particular features for the entire group. You don't need to worry about that. But these are fast runners. If you see a beetle that looks something like this, oh, what's that? Boy, it's racing around. That's a predatory carabid or ground beetle. And notice the mandibles stick out front. That's called being prognathous. That gnathos means jaw. Pro is in front, so their jaws are out front. And they grab it. And you notice the green one on the lower right, that is feeding on an oithwoin. That's how far, I mean, sometimes good guys go too. The worm just didn't move out of the way. Ground beetles feed on caterpillars and berries. Well, berries, so it's going to eat a little bit of fruit. A berry diet. We like berry diet. We don't eat cows all the time. We maybe like to eat a lot of vegetables too. All right, this one is another highly predatory ground beetle. Good sized beetle. It's about 3/4 of an inch long. Then we have these two, the caterpillar hunter. The one on the left is called, that is a caterpillar hunter, very common around here. And sometimes if you happen to step on it, they may not smell so good, but that's beside the point. Maybe it's what they've eaten yesterday. You never can tell. But they're highly predatory, good things to have in your garden. Leave them alone. Don't poison them. All right, these feed on caterpillars and other dead insects. These are smaller ones. They're only maybe 3/8 to anywhere from 3/8 to a ½ inch long, sometimes 5/8, and they run fast. They're found under rocks and boards and other things, just waiting to come out and look for something to eat. These are fantastic beetles, the tiger beetles. They're fast flyers, fast runners, voracious feeders. They're highly predatory. In fact, all stages are predatory. We have 3 different species mentioned on the upper portion and the one on the left. The larva is also predatory. They live in holes in the ground. Many times you find them on some nice sandy stock tanks. You'll find a hole or next to a tree somewhere in a path maybe where ants have been walking. And you find a weird shape towards the end of the body of that larva. It's got spines on it because that's when it's in the hole, those spines can be forced to hold back the body hunched over, and the spines will hold it in that channel. And then the head lays somewhat flat, exposed on the surface. Something walks like, it'll grab it and feed on it. A good predator doesn't walk around, likes to eat at home. The other ones are dandy flyers. And they will bite you if you pick one up, bend its head and nip your finger. That's all right. It doesn't hurt too much. And rove beetles. These are small. And you know beetles have that wing cover. It's called elytra. They're generally fairly solid. But in this one, notice the wing covers are very short. Characteristic of rove beetles. There are several thousand species of rove beetles around. Years ago, I had one small one fly in my eye. I ended up with conjunctivitis because it caused all swelling of the conjunctiva of the eye because it secretes a toxin and you react to it. So, but they're good beetles. There's one, a large one, just about 1 inch long, that's very common, feeding on decomposing flesh. It's a marker for in postmortem studies in forensic medicine. Soldier beetles, that's what we showed earlier as a pollinator. Now it's a predator. Good predator too. Checkered beetles. These things, they can detect a host underneath the bark of trees. And they can tell if what's under there, whether anything else has been there or not, by pheromones. And it can lay eggs, and the larvae will go down and eat the bark insects, very common in forest environments. Now, ladybird beetles. Call these things ladybird beetles. Don't call them ladybugs. That is a bad thing to do. Because ladybugs, when you say bug, you figure something that either stinks and has a sticking, skin puncturing mouth part. That's a sucking insect. But these are beetles, lady beetles. The one on the left is a convergent ladybird beetle, highly predatory on aphids and scales and that. It's a good one to have. But watch what you buy. If you've got a greenhouse and you've got plants in there that unfortunately have aphids or scales and mealybugs, and you say, well, I need to get rid of them. I don't want to spray. You can get some of these. Release them in the greenhouse. They have nowhere to go. They're in the greenhouse. They can feed on those insects that are eating your plants. But you say, well, I'm going to buy these ladybirds because they're good beetles, and I'll just turn out the crop. So you get an order of them, you release them, ladybird, fly away home. Oh, they do. They weren't raised there. They're going back where they were raised. And there's some places in the U.S. that you can either have artificial insectorium and raise them, or you can find in some mountain areas pockets of hundreds of these things overwintering, spending the cold days underneath the ground is there. And that's where they get them. So those things come from an area, they're brought someplace else. When they're released, they're going to go back where they came from. So anyway, the ones on the right, that's the Harmonia erexidus, the Asian multicolored ladybird. That was brought into the United States years ago. It now in some cases are considered a problem because they outcompete and displace many of our native ladybird beetles. So this is shall we say, a foreign introduction that we've done ourselves. We do a good job of introducing nasty things into the country. And anyway, they're really good eaters of aphids and scales and mealybugs. They're really nice to have around, but they also need some place to spend the winter. So you may find them in your house. We constantly get them on our lampshades and on the ceiling someplace. I just leave them there. I mean, occasionally we have an anole running around the house too. A few spiders here. God save the spiders too. When you're a bug person, you're basically weird. That's it. Now, the one on the bottom is feeding on a cotton cushion scale, different genus and species of lady beetle. By the way, the one at the top left, the Asian multicolored, that's the same species in all three individuals. And some are even more salmon colored than that. So it's a highly variable species. But they have a nasty habit during the winter of overwintering in junction boxes, in light switches, and in closets. And they may be such a population that they don't smell particularly good at times. So in some Midwestern states, they become a nuisance, a pest. But I just let them be because in January, February, well, it's time to go outside again. Ladybird beetle larvae. All right, these are the larval stage of ladybird beetles. And the one on the right looks like scale insects, a mealybug. Now, keep in mind what this thing looks like.
Same size?
Yeah.
No!
Well, the mealybugs are small. These things are a little bit bigger than that. They're probably quarter inch long. But this is a good one. Look at the distribution of the projections from the body. All right, here's our hoverflies again. I want to show you the larvae. They're good pollinators, and the larvae are those funny looking ugly beasts on the bottom, and they're having a heyday feeding on the aphids. Field ants, oh, they're good too, picking up insects. Mud daubers, these mud daubers are slender-waisted wasps. They are good predators, and different species will pick up different species of spiders and stuff them into the mud nest. And there are a number of different species will have different type of mud nests. Some of you, I don't know how many people have mud daubers here. I know where we are. My garage is full of the things. And they are nasty, building their mud nests in the back of a motor for drill press or saw. I burned out a couple of motors. You turn it on sometime, all of a sudden start smoking. Ah, mamma mia! Turn it off and hope you didn't burn it out. Because what happens, the mud nests are built in the back end where the starting capacitor has a kick-out thing when it reaches a certain speed. Well, all of a sudden it doesn't click off and it keeps going and heats up the wires and burns it out. So they can be really bothersome from that standpoint. And then we've got paper wasps. Oh, people don't like paper wasps, but you know, any of you that have heard Malcolm Beck talk, he loved the paper wasps, the red wasps, any of those things, and keep them around because what do they feed on? Caterpillars. Right. That's what all those holes there, they lay an egg. They stuff a caterpillar in there so that the larva has something to feed on to make another wasp. Good.
Don't put them at your front door.
Well, yeah, your front door. Unfortunately, our daughter, she can just walk by one and pew, they hit her. We just look out and say, oh, how about that? So They don't attack us. Red wasps are terrible. Years ago, they took down a water tower at Texas State outside the science building. And the father was up there, and his son was, he climbed the ladder. Oh, Dad, I can't go up there anymore. There's big old red wasp nest up there. Big red wasp nest up there. And the old man says, come on down. I'll show you what to do. The old man climbs up the ladder, grabs hold of that wasp, throws it down. There, it's gone. You know, I would be the guy who crawled down the ladder first of all. I wouldn't, because those things are nasty stingers. Potter wasp. Have you ever seen a potter wasp? You see the nest. Neat. They will stuff a caterpillar larva inside the top of it, and they generally put in 1 to 3 of them, and sometimes there's a hole in the bottom of the mud pot, and so the larvae keep going through, and they keep stuffing more larvae in there, then they seal it up, and the larvae eventually produce another wasp like on the left. All right, quickly we'll look at a few bad critters, and here's the mealybug. That's what the other one that I had was, a mealybug destroyer. It can fool the mealybugs around, walk up to it, and gobble it up. Scale insects, nasty little things. There's several kinds of scales. The mealybugs, one group, soft scales, another group. Then the hard scales, like the crepe myrtle bark scale, which is a new introduction. Those are hard scales. The females are permanently attached to the bark. They produce the young, sneak out from underneath, but they're very difficult to control. Those are the ones that at times a person will consider using systemic insecticide. That's the only way you're going to get them, because if you spray them, you can't. One way to do it is just scrape them off the bark. The crepe myrtle bark scale can make a crepe myrtle look really nasty in a short period of time. So these are scale insects. Aphids, another major group. There's 4 different kinds of aphids there, and they have an odd life cycle that the females come out from the winter, and they will start producing young. They produce it what they call parsonage genetically. In other words, they don't need to be fertilized. They just keep cranking out eggs. Cha, 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 boom, boom, boom. Several generations during the spring and summer, they crank these out. Boy, do they make a population. Like that, what you have there. Best way to do it is take a water hose and squirt them off, get rid of them, because they don't crawl back very well. Later on in towards the winter, they go ahead and produce winged males. They mate, produce an overwintering egg, and the thing starts again. Leaf hoppers. Well, most probably you've heard about leaf hoppers. Is Pierce's disease that is transmitted to disease of grapes, and it's very devastating. And these many times use an alternate plant host. Milkweed bugs. Now at this point, look at the number of nymphs in the upper right hand. When you see a mass of insects on your plants that all look the same, all about the same size, get a pan, put soapy water in, knock them off. You can get rid of the nymphs easy because they can't fly. Right. But you know, have you ever tried to chase down a leaf-footed bug when you're in the, that's on your tomatoes? Oh, I'm going to get that guy. They fly away. They fly. But the larvae, the nymphs, are massive. Look at the milkweed bug in the bottom. A bunch of milkweed bugs. Those are pests. If you find just 1 or 2, they're probably good guys. But if you have a bunch that look the same, they're pests.
They're in a gang.
Yeah. Tarnished plant bugs, the same type of thing. This are leaf-footed bugs. See, this looks a little bit like that sucking bug, the Chagas beetle, Chagas bug. But the leaf foot, look at the hind leg. It's expanded, laterally produced. That means that it is a leaf-footed bug. Sucking insects. Stink bugs. The green one, the marmorated. Marmorated is introduced. It can feed on 150, 200 different species of plants. And there's the mass of nymphs in the bottom.
Bad guys.
The harlequin bug, you've probably seen these around. They feed on many different host plants. Leaf beetles. The one in the middle on the bottom is the western corn rootworm. Or spotted cucumber beetles. We think they're just going to be on the cucumbers and that. Sometimes in January, if it's a warm day, early February, you see them, oh, look at the cucumber beetles. Where do they come from? Under the mulch you left on the ground. You know, that's why they say get rid of some of your ground stuff, because a lot of insects will overwinter under it. So the cucumber beetle, the larvae feed on corn roots, and it's really destructive. Flea beetles, little holes in your plants. Man, that looks like someone took some rat shot and shot your leaves. Well, that's because of the feeding of the flea beetles. And these are the caterpillars. Just show you the adult moth and the larva, the black cutworm under the ground. You put some little seedlings in the ground. The next morning you go and say, where's the seedling? Somebody ate it off the ground.
Yep.
Cutworm comes out at night,
Condors, my nemesis.
gobbles up. And the genista moth, that's the thing you find on the terminal flowers of a mountain laurel. Very, very common. Generally how I get rid of it, if you don't apply BT early, hope it doesn't rain. Apply that before you have the eggs hatching. Then when the eggs hatch, the larvae will feed on it. They'll die. If you wait until you see a caterpillar and they're full grown, you're wasting your time. They've already done the damage.
Yep.
Genista moth, I generally take, and if I see a bunch of them, I just take them off, scrunch them up, and that's it. Squash vine borer. Those are nasty. They make holes in the base of the squash vine, eat out the center of it.
Pumpkins.
And lo and behold, you've got a dead plant. And then the cabbage looper, call it the looper because you see the prolegs, and that's the lower right. The two sets of prolegs in the back end, and it's got a loop in order to walk. The egg mast of the florist tent caterpillar, that looks somewhat like what you find in a praying mantis. But praying mantis is just like a tent sitting there, a single structure, where this wraps around entirely around the stem. And then the fall webworm. And these are 4 books. If I take the one that has really got some more fair information in it is the Garden Insects, the 2nd edition. From the 1st edition to 2nd edition, they added another 1,300 photographs. But it's the Garden Insects of North America, and there's a picture of darn near anything you may have, even a lot of the good insects that you want. Texas Bug Book by Malcolm Beck and Garrett. That one is really, it has good information, and it's let's say environmentally friendly. The Field Guide of Northern Insects, the lower left, by Coughlin. His field guide series were great. Good photographs, I use that extensively. And then a former professor at University of Texas, John Abbott, who has published a couple major works on dragonflies and damselflies of Texas. He and his wife have put out the Common Insects of Texas on the right. Then, I think 2 years ago, he and his wife published the Insects of North America. Not too much information, but a description, brief descriptions and photographs of many of the North American insects. So you can identify a lot of what you have, and boy, I bet you're ready to go home.